A few days ago, the United States held an election campaign to choose the next president of that country. Donald Trump has won, emerging with a considerable and decisive victory. An event like this, though political in nature, might seem unrelated to a program dedicated to commenting on current church issues. This might seem to some, but not to me, which is why I discussed it today. This is because it involves not only the election of the president of that might be the world's leading power with economic and even military implication for his country and beyond, but also two issues of crucial importance, especially from an ethical perspective and for Catholics: the defense of unborn life and the religious freedom. I will explain why I addressed this topic, focusing on Donald Trump's future presidency, beginning with some recent comments by the Pope during the Holy Father's recent trip to Belgium as he was returning to Rome and conversing with journalists as he usually does. He was asked for his opinion on the two candidates. The election was still some time away, and he would have remained neutral, saying it was an internal matter of another country and thus not his place to comment. But he didn't do so. Instead, he openly expressed his views on both candidates. Regarding Mrs. Harris, he noted that she is fully committed to the cause of abortion, which he found very disturbing. Mrs. Harris' support for abortion has been increasingly evident throughout her campaign, to the point that it has become the central focus on her electoral platform. Conservatively regarding Mr. Trump, he criticized the candidate's intention to deport thousands of migrants in the country illegally, which is part of his campaign promises. This criticism of Trump aligns with what the Pope has previously stated on other occasions, urging more developed nations to open the doors to those coming from poorer countries or countries with political issues. In the same interview during that trip, he was also asked about kin, Buduinin, and the topic of abortion. He spoke very forcefully, not for the first time, against abortion, as well as against doctors who perform abortion. This was not the first time he had referred to the abortion doctors as hitmen. The Pope, being Argentine, is well versed in Spanish. That language, a sicario, is someone who kills for hire. It is an assassin who kills on command. You pay them to eliminate a political or economic rival, for example, or even one's spouse. A hitman is someone who kills for hire. The Pope called doctors who perform abortion hitmen, sicarios. The uproar that followed was immense, but it was not the first time he had made such remarks. It was evident that by saying Mrs. Harris was someone radical in favor of abortion, specifically in favor of the so-called decapitation abortion, he was being quite direct. This method involves halting the birth process momentarily, inserting an instrument into the baby's neck, into the brain, which instantly kills the child. The delivery is then completed and the baby is dismembered, with its organs being sold for commercial purpose. Well, Mrs. Harris, among others, support this extreme type of abortion. She is one of the strongest advocates for abortion, multinational Planned Parenthood, which has been one of the campaign companies that contribute the most money for her campaign. The Pope did not call Mr. Harris of murder. He did not say that. He said that the murders, the hitmen, were the abortion doctors. He did not say that she was a murderer, but in that context, it was clear he was referring, if not to the killer, meaning the one who carries out the killing, then to the one who supports these killings and seeks to make them legal, even right. At that time, I dare to say that, in light of this comparison, even through the deporting illegal immigrants back to their countries in uncertain conditions might be morally serious, it was far graver to kill innocent person like the unborn child. I am certain that there were practicing American Catholics for whom immigration was a significant factor in deciding their vote, but I am sure that for many other American Catholics, the issue of abortion weighed more heavily, perhaps much more. A few days after I made this comment, that it seemed to me that the Pope, with these words, this comparison was supporting Trump's campaign because what Mrs. Harris promoted was far graver. Even Donald Trump himself said exactly the same thing. He said, quote, "The Pope supports my candidacy," meaning the Pope supports my election as president, end quote. The Pope hadn't explicitly said this, but he had drawn a comparison that highlighted what he saw as negative in both candidates, even calling abortion doctors hitmen sicarios. Mrs. Harris could have done the same as Mr. Trump. She could have claimed that the Pope supported her because she opposed deporting illegal immigrants. She could have done it, but she did not. I believe she refrained. First, because it was not have served her politically to represent herself as someone in favor of tolerance towards illegal immigrants, and also because deep down she was aware of the vast difference between what she defended and what the Pope deemed negative, and what Trump defended and what the Pope considered negative. Mrs. Harris remained silent, saying nothing, while Trump declared he believed that the Pope supported him. However, a few days later, a charitable dinner took place in New York, organized by the Archdiocese of New York, held traditionally within the context of the presidential campaign. It is customary for both candidates to be invited to this dinner as a way for fostering unity, showing that despite our difference, we can come together. A benefit dinner supports charitable causes, but with the underlying goal of offering the Church as mediator of ease tensions and prevent conflicts from becoming personal. Mrs. Harris, who at that time was and is still the vice president and the candidate for the presidency, refused to attend this dinner, while Trump did attend. Cardinal Dolan, the Archbishop of New York, expressed his disappointment when he greeted her, saying that he did not understand why she had not chosen to attend the dinner. He also reproached her, noting that she often speaks about dialogue in unity, and here was a moment for such a dialogue, even visibly, yet she refused to come. But above all, Cardinal Donald said something that sounded more like a prophecy to me than a warning. He said that only once since this event were first organized has a candidate refused to attend the dinner. That was Walter Mondale, who was the Democrat Party's candidate, the same party of Mrs. Harris, and was running against none other than Ronald Reagan. Cardinal Donald remarked, quote, "I like to remind everyone that after Mondale declined to attend the dinner with Catholics, he lost 50 of the 52 U.S. states." End quote. Reagan won a landslide, and the Democrat candidates suffered a crucial defeat. That doesn't mean there is a cause and effect relationship between not attending the dinner and Mrs. Harris losing the elections, but Cardinal Dolan said it clearly. It has only happened once, and this is indeed a snub to Catholics, although he did not literally say it. It was implied, and the one time this happened before, the candidate who snubbed us lost by a huge margin, losing 50 out of 52 states. Thus, events have turned out as they have, with a truly overwhelming victory, exceeding what the polls suggested. By the way, the polls are always wrong. This might seem normal. Polls are often wrong, but they are always wrong in the same direction. It is not as that sometimes they favor one side and other times the other. Not they always favor the left. Once again, the poll missed the mark. Mr. Trump won by an overwhelming, resounding margin, such a greater than expected. He also won the Senate, and with the count still ongoing, appeared to have a good chance in the House as well. I believe, and this is of course my opinion, but I wish to express it, that this is a very positive development. I have many reservations about Mr. Trump. I have many reservations. He is not someone I like. He is not someone with whom I fully identify, but I have to say that he defends religious freedom and the right to life. While he may not be entirely opposed to abortion, he at least leans more towards pro-life position than do the Catholics and politicians from the rival party, the Democrats. Therefore, I believe that those of us who are pro-life, advocating for the life of the unborn, as well as for the elderly or the sick in the final stage of life, and those who support religious freedom, we shall feel encouraged by Trump's victory. I repeat, with all the caveats and difficulties that exist, and that the Pope has also pointed out. So I take the liberty of using a modified phrase from that famous 1953 Vergalan film, Welcome, Mr. Marshall, an extraordinary film. Perhaps young people haven't seen it, since it has from before I was born, but I've watched it many times. It is an extraordinary film. I take the liberty of using the title slightly changed to say, Welcome, Mr. Trump, welcome. And as a Catholic, in the spirit of the Pope's words, I want to ask you not only to defend religious freedom and the life of the unborn, but also to be as generous as possible with the illegal immigrants in your country, who are human beings loved by the Lord with all of his heart. Until next week, God willing.